Welcome back to Luxury Cruising. I'm your host, Chris Soditis, and once again, we have Joelle here. And as promised, she has come back to tell us all about her Antarctic adventure on Scenic Cruises. Joelle, please remind the audience about you and anything you want them to know about you.
Hi, everyone. Good to be back. Crystal, good to see you. My name is Joelle Burlat, and I lived most of my career as a CPA and now am in retirement. Am spending most of my time cruising and doing other sorts of travel. So your podcast is right up my alley, and I'm thrilled to be back with you today.
Awesome, awesome. Well, I had so much fun talking with you the last time about your cruise in the Icon Suite on Celebrity, and we will definitely link that in the show notes for anybody who wants to take a listen to that. But today we're talking about Scenic. So tell us what made you decide to go on this particular ship? Which ship was it? What led to that decision?
So we knew that we wanted to go to Antarctica, and I knew that we were going to want a small ship experience. There's some very practical reasons for that in the case of Antarctica, in addition to sort of the normal big ship, small ship debate. In Antarctica, the cruise lines are only allowed to put 100 people on the actual continent of Antarctica at any given point in time. So, as a practical matter, what that means is the large ships are not able to actually allow you to get on the land
Yeah.
of Antarctica. It's just not possible. So, we knew we wanted a small ship. Coming out of COVID, we were very fortunate to be able to go on a scenic cruise in Europe as some of the deals that came out of COVID. They were trying to refill the ships, and so we got a
I
great
totally
deal. So we were able to go. I quite honestly never heard of Scenic. It was just not someone that was even on my radar. But we loved the experience and were able to chat with the folks on board and really decided that they would be a very good choice for Antarctica. And I believe that to be true. We loved everything about our experience.
Awesome. So tell us, which ship were you on and talk about the ship. What was it
So we
like?
were on what they call Scenic Eclipse 1 now. There is a Scenic Eclipse 2, and they are building a third ship, actually, which will not be called Scenic Eclipse 3. It has a different name. But the ship itself looks kind of like a big yacht. I mean, that's what it looks like. The number of passengers it holds, if it's not in Antarctica, is, I think, 220 something. But on Antarctic cruises, they limit the capacity to 200, going back to that 100 person limit
Yeah.
that allows them to put everyone on shore once a day, basically,
Mhm.
because you can do a group in the morning and a group in the afternoon.
Yeah.
So the ship itself is designed around that small ship feeling. It has a large lounge area with a very large bar. They pride themselves on their whiskey selection, and my husband is into whiskey, and they do have a quite impressive
Mhm.
whiskey selection. But they also have, of course, all your other spirits. I'm more of a gin girl, so they had quite a few of those as well. So they had a large bar with a lounge area. That's sort of where everything happens. Scenic, interestingly, it started as a land tour company, but then they moved into river cruising and then they moved into ocean.
Mhm.
And so sometimes you do get the feeling that they sort of design some of their processes around the way rivers work, especially when you've only got a couple hundred people. Some of that
Yeah.
works out. So we've got the large lounge area with a bar where sort of everything happens. The guest services desk is there, et cetera, et cetera. All the lectures take place in a separate area. They do have a auditorium area. It is very high tech. It has lounge chairs, some of them the footrest, with automated electronic footrests and very impressive video screens that their lecturers use to show you various things. They have a videographer on
Mhm.
board so they can show
Yeah.
you footage of things. And then obviously there's I guess what you'd call the main dining room. There's another restaurant that is French. There's another restaurant that has a sushi bar. And then there is a Asian fusion portion. And then there's sort of a specialty restaurant that is very small, that's more of an Asian street food kind of concept. So they do have a lot of food concepts. All of them are included. There are no additional charges. You do have to make reservations for any of them besides the main one.
Yeah.
They guarantee everyone one reservation at least
Mhm.
in the various other restaurants. I found that you could usually, if you expressed your desire to do so, you could get into some of the others. The two that are very difficult to get into, and in fact, I didn't even make it on my first cruise, the street food concept, because it
Yeah.
is so small, it can be difficult to get into. And then the one thing that annoys me about Scenic, and I'll go ahead and put it on the table, and I ran into
Yeah.
their North American head of marketing, and I told him, this really doesn't work for Americans. The company is Australian, and I think
Mm.
sometimes their marketing strategies are designed around Australians.
Yeah.
They have a chef's table concept. It is apparently very impressive. They make a big deal of it in all their marketing, but it is very, very difficult to get in.
Mm.
And they don't
Yeah.
say, oh, and if you get the big suite, I think that's what Americans expect. Tell
Yeah.
me the criteria. And if I don't make those criteria, okay, I'm fine. Right.
Yeah.
But they don't do that. But anyway, apparently it's impressive. We've met their head chef a couple of times who was on Top Chef, the show.
Yeah. Wow.
Really interesting guy. Love him. And then to keep going with the ship, there's a fitness room. It's a relatively small fitness room, but
Yeah.
very
For
modern
200
and up to
people.
date and
Yeah.
all those good things. One of the really cool things about Scenic is they do have an open bridge, and they really mean it. The bridge is open.
Yeah.
You can roam in there, chit chat with the staff. They'll tell you if they need to be focused on
Yeah.
something nicely. Um, because it's the bridge, it has windows all the way around. And so you can go in there and they have little seats below the thing that the navigators sit on.
Right.
And so you can sit there with binoculars. They give you binoculars in
Wow.
your room. You can sit there with binoculars and look out and look for whales and this, that, and the other. And the naturalists will come hang out up there and help you find things.
Wow. Like the bridge is almost like a secondary hangout place. Right on.
Yes, absolutely. People would spend hours just sitting up there with their binoculars. And
Yeah.
when it's cold outside, exiting from the bridge area, there's a huge open deck on the front. But obviously it's cold. So
Yeah.
you could hang out up there, wait until you spot, or the naturalists more likely, spot, a whale or a seal or something. And then you could run outside and look at them.
Yeah. That's awesome. What was the decor like? Was it more of a traditional Nautic? Was it understated elegance?
I would say more understated elegant. It feels pretty modern. It's sleek surfaces. The beds in the cabin are adjustable electronically.
I've
Your
never.
feet, head, you can raise your feet and your
Oh,
head.
that's nice. Yeah.
It's really nice. Everybody has a butler. I don't tend to know what to do with butlers, quite honestly, but they're there. They hang out. They bring you coffee. The decor, I'd say it's a modern elegant. It's not minimalist. I would know in no way say it's like minimalist, but it is clean lines and
Yeah.
sort of modern finishes.
Yeah. And that goes along with like a giant yacht feel,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
nice. Yeah. So is it an all suite ship?
I never quite know what that concept means, but I mean, all the rooms are pretty good sized. Everybody has a butler, everybody has a walk-in closet, it definitely all suite esque for
Yeah.
sure.
I think that's a term that they use, but I'm sure there's grades. There's probably like an entry level suite, but then there's also the owner's suite, the penthouse suite, the scenic suite. I think they actually do have something called a scenic suite.
Oh,
Right?
I would bet they do. There's 3 or 4. I mean, we had the normal sort of entry-level cabin. The vast majority of the ship, the cabins are pretty much the same, but there are
Yeah.
some on the top deck. I know somebody has a balcony that comes out onto the front. So in the front of the ship, the spa is at the front on one level, and there's a big hot tubish kind of spa pool there out on the front of the ship. And then on the bottom, there's a sports deck, one of those concepts down
Yeah.
there. But I think on one level in the middle, there is a suite that has a big chunk of the back available to them.
Yeah, I bet. I can only imagine the views, especially if it's in the back. Amazing.
Absolutely.
So you had a butler. Any other amenities come with the room?
I mean, there is an espresso machine in the room. The amenities as far as toiletries and all of that are very high end. The adjustable bed, for some people, this wasn't that big of a deal to me, but for some people, I think especially with like more complicated hair, it comes with the fancy vacuum
Dyson?
brand, Dyson hairdryer.
I interviewed somebody else on the podcast. It was the same thing. Like they were so happy there was a Dyson hair dryer. And I guess maybe the blow dryers on most cruise lines are kind of weak and having like a really powerful good hair dryer makes a difference. So,
Well, I would tell you on most I do dry my hair. It's just not that complicated, but most cruise ships, especially the older ones, the hair dryers are awful, just
yeah.
awful. So yeah, in the rooms, I would say those are the main things that come to mind. They're very nice rooms. I was very comfortable. They, all the TVs and this, that, and the other, and everybody has a balcony. You have very comfortable furniture out on the balcony, which was important in Antarctica because I did spend a fair amount of time out there, believe it or not. Um, it was cold, but not like super, super frigid. As long as when you were out on that front deck, it was very cold because of the wind. But if you were on your balcony, so you were kind of protected by the sides,
Yeah.
um, it was cold like when you go to Colorado skiing cold. As long as,
Mhm.
they give you a parka. I use it every time I go to a cold climate now because I live in Texas and I don't really own a lot of cold climate clothes.
Yeah.
They give you a very nice parka that has a zip out liner so you can take the inside out if you want to and wear just the outside and,
Nice.
et cetera, et cetera. So I'd go out there. And the thing about Antarctica is it's so quiet. So you don't see any other ships. There's just nothing making noise except icebergs and whales.
Yeah. And penguins. Aren't penguins really loud too?
They are. You don't hear them from the distance. When you get close to the land, sometimes you'll hear them. But when you're sort of out in the middle of the water, you hear
Yeah.
whales and you hear icebergs. Believe it or not, icebergs are super loud. And that's one of the most interesting things about Antarctica. It'll just be quiet, quiet, quiet. And then you either hear a whale spout, and because it's so quiet, you can hear that from a distance and you get used to how they sound and how to find them, which is the coolest thing ever.
Yeah.
And the icebergs start to crack and calve and do their thing, and you hear that.
That sounds amazing. It's almost like space. What
Exactly. Let me tell you, I had high hopes for Antarctica. I thought it was gonna be cool. It exceeded my expectation. I'm super glad we did it. I'm very glad we went ahead and did it on a very luxurious line. Not even so much about the luxury, but about the quality of the excursions, the quality of the naturalists. And, we had a person that specifically had a PhD in whales on the ship.
wow.
And then another one that had a PhD in history that talked all about the people, Shackelford and all those people. And then we had another one that was a specialist in rocks, like a geologist in,
Antarctic rocks.
yeah.
I mean, I can't believe there are rocks. I thought it was just ice, but I guess there are rocks.
No, there's a lot of rocks. Exactly. And then someone gave us a whole lecture about icebergs and, how they behave and the shapes of them and the sizes of them, which believe it or not was super interesting. So we learned about all the different penguins and then all the different seals and then all the different icebergs. And so, yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Having a
just so
good
much to
naturalist.
learn.
Yeah, and having a good naturalist, like there are certain places where you need that, like Alaska, Antarctica. We went on a cruise. It was a transatlantic, but we were stopping in the Azores. And
Oh,
so there was a naturalist that talked about basically all the different types of sea life in the North Atlantic for people that, were interested in that. Every day there was a different, like, whales or turtles or sharks or whatever. If you can, other than the quiet, like how would you describe Antarctica? I'm sure it's practically indescribable, but
Antarctica is, of course, extraordinarily large. And what most of us are able to see is sort of the northern part, right? We did specifically choose a cruise that it's called below the Antarctic Circle. So they actively made an effort to get below the Antarctic Circle,
mhm.
which was just
What
kind of a
is
cool
that?
thing to do.
I'm not
I
even
mean,
sure what that means.
the geographic latitude or laundry, the ones that go around it,
Uh-huh.
the one that is sort of the last one before you get to the pole.
Oh, okay. So like if you people are watching on YouTube, like you're almost going around and underneath. Is that it?
It was interesting. It was a lot more rocks than I expected. I guess I kind of expected more to be just ice and snow. But there were several places we landed that we were on dirt. I mean, we're there in the summer, right? But I just didn't occur to me. So we did land a couple of places that we were walking through snow or ice, but a couple places we were on dirt. But the most interesting part of it to me was the ice structures, the huge glaciers and icebergs and all of
Hmm.
this. So that's what made it so otherworldly. The
Yeah.
land part, to be honest, while I wanted to land, and I think it was very cool that we landed and walked around in Antarctica, it wasn't as different from, other places I've been in the world, I guess I would say.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just like a snowy plain or maybe
Yeah.
like a gravelly plain.
A gravelly plain, a snowy plain, you walk up a big snowy hill,
Yeah.
you know. It wasn't as unusual, other than maybe a big colony of penguins sitting there, but
Hmm.
the animal life was amazing. The icebergs were amazing. To get in a kayak, so one of the cool things about Scenic is they have kayaks and stand-up paddleboards, but I wasn't doing that in Antarctica, but people did it. Um, but they put you in a dry suit. So, and they
Uh-huh.
help you get it on, and I'm not a small girl, they made it happen. So you put on a dry suit so that if you fall in, though they don't intend for you to, but if you do, it's not the end of the world. I did meet one woman on the ship who fell off of a stand-up paddleboard, and she's like, it was cold, but not really
Yeah.
terrible.
Horrible.
So, but they put you in there and they have excursions where you can go out kayaking and to kayak through what they call brash ice, which is sort of this water mixed with big chunks of ice. And you can we kayaked over to another big chunk of ice with some seals sitting on it. And we're, 10 yards from these seals floating around on this big chunk of ice. It's just amazing. And you have this weird sensation, though you're not, right? There's all these ships out here, but you have this weird sensation that you're experiencing this crazy, unusual thing,
Yeah.
getting to see all this. And I don't know about you, but I think as someone who travels a lot and did not come up in a privileged circumstance economically, every now and then something kind of hits me and I'm like, I can't believe I'm freaking here.
Yeah. The sheer, like, the vastness of
Yeah.
the experience can be overwhelming. I can imagine it hits you and it's a little overwhelming. Like, wow, what am I doing here?
Yeah,
This is amazing.
exactly. We also got to take a helicopter. So Scenic has a helicopter on the ship. Uh,
That's cool.
two of them, actually. I think there's two of them.
Yeah.
And so we got to take a helicopter. The weather was not conducive for a number of days. And so we were a little worried, but they made it happen. And we flew a helicopter for, I think it was half an hour. And so we flew over the tops of all these massive ice structures, and you get to see like there's pools of blue water in the top of an iceberg, just
Wow.
amazing stuff. And we're flying over the land, and it was crazy. They have a submarine as well. They did not take it out on our particular venture.
That would be amazing. And was the helicopter tour and maybe the submarine, if it's running, is that included or is that an additional charge?
No, that's the only thing I can think of on the ship other than like massages, but generally speaking, that's the only thing that's an extra charge. And
And
it is
all of
not
the like,
cheap.
I'm sure not, but it's also a once in a lifetime kind of a thing. It's
Yeah,
like you're spending quite a bit of money to get down there. That last whatever it is, $100, $1,000 to not take that excursion, it almost seems like no, we're not gonna. You're almost nickel and diming yourself, right? Like you go on a cruise, you go on this ultra luxury cruise line. In some ways, to avoid being nickel and dimed, don't do that to yourself.
right. And my recollection is it was about $800.
Yeah.
By the time you've spent everything you've spent to book this cruise, fly to Buenos Aires, et cetera, et cetera. I wouldn't have let price stop me. Ran into some people that didn't do it just because the concept of a helicopter kind of freaked them
Right.
out. Okay, that's fair. But I would not do it because of the money.
Yeah. Exactly. So let me just touch on this because you mentioned you flew down to Buenos Aires. Because I know there are some itineraries where you can avoid the Drake Passage or it's less time through the Drake Passage. How was your Drake Passage experience and did Scenic do anything to maybe help with that?
So we flew to Buenos Aires and then Scenic chartered a plane from Buenos Aires to Ushuaia. and then we went from there. So we did traverse the Drake Passage. Um, I am fortunate enough that I do not experience, knock on wood, I never experienced seasickness. That said, our passage was not that bad. The captain said that on a scale of 1 to 10, as far as the
Yeah.
experience that is the Drake Passage, we were maybe a 3. We
Well,
had
that's pretty
one
good.
night where they wrapped all the glassware, that kind of thing,
Yeah.
but generally speaking, it wasn't bad at all. Um, I talked to a few of the crew about it, and they said that they feel like that gets a little bit overblown. Not that it can never be bad, but it can be bad anywhere. You can get in a
Yeah.
storm
Yeah.
anywhere. They feel like that gets a little bit overstated, but I can't say for sure, but our experience was not bad at all. Scenic, to my knowledge, does not do the version where you fly
Mhm.
over the Drake Passage. The downside of that is that flights there can be iffy at best.
Yeah, I'm sure they can get canceled just as easily, and then you're missing out on some days on the ship.
Right. Exactly. Kind of is what it is. But yeah, we didn't think it was bad. And it was really neat to have those couple of days going down because when you've only got 200 people, it was really nice to have some time to get to know people,
Mhm.
um,
Yeah.
where everybody was kind of hanging out. One thing I did not mention that the ship has is a lounge area on the back of the ship with another observation deck that is specifically a tea lounge. It has a whole bunch of different kinds of tea,
Yeah.
like super fancy tea,
Yeah.
and a library. So they have all sorts of books about Antarctica. They have some other random books,
Mhm.
but then they have comfy chairs and you can access the front deck from there.
Yeah.
But so between hanging out in the bar and hanging out back there, you get to meet some people.
I love that. And a ship this size and this type of itinerary, the vast majority of people are going to have similar interests. They're
Mhm.
probably mostly going to be cruisers. You might get some people who have never cruised before, but probably the majority have been on a cruise, I would guess. And you're going to get people who, especially on Scenic, appreciate being on a luxury cruise and are interested in Antarctica and all that it has to offer. So you automatically have topics of discussion with people. And so it opens a door so that you can get to know. And then when you come back, once you get to Antarctica, what did you do? We saw this whale. We went on that excursion. I fell off the, stand up paddleboard.
Yeah.
And you create community and relationships. And that's one of the greatest things about cruising and cruisers is that we're really nice people.
Well, and this group was really interesting because the company is based in Australia. There's a large number of Australians and New
Mm. Yeah,
Zealanders. So
yeah.
I would say it was probably 40 for 50% US and the balance was all Australian slash New Zealanders. Uh,
Wow, that's fun
so
too.
that was very fun because, Australia and New Zealand are high on my list to travel to. And so I was able to get some recommendations of places to go. I took a lot of notes. But yes, a lot of it in the evenings was exactly what you just said. What did you see today when you were out on your excursions? And show me the footage of your sea lion that
Yeah,
chased you on your Zodiac. Show me the footage of your penguin that tried to bring
yeah,
you a rock, whatever.
yeah. Oh, that reminds me of another question I had for you because you were talking about how there was a videographer on board. So,
Mhm.
did they offer a video compilation, photography package? I mean, I'm sure that we can all take pictures on our phones and maybe even high-end cameras, but when the professionals do it, was there an ability to get and did they capture it and could you take it home?
Yeah, they captured a video that includes a visual map of our itinerary, which is not fixed in advance because one of the things about Antarctica and Scenic specifically is the captain can go wherever he
Mhm.
thinks the weather conditions are conducive to a good day, basically.
Yeah.
And he told us about how there's this whole system with the ships down there. They sort of have to radio in to somebody central of where they want to go and they negotiate amongst themselves of who's going to go where. But the captain can go wherever they want. So you don't entirely know exactly where you're going to go beforehand.
Yeah.
So this video, he filmed all sorts of cool things, the animals we saw, some of the places we went. He had permission from whomever gives permission to use a drone. at times. So he
Cool.
was able to get some
Yeah.
drone footage. One of the things that was specific to our cruise, which was super cool, is the Scenic Eclipse 1 and the Scenic Eclipse 2 wound up coming nose to nose.
Wow, that is cool.
And one of them gave one of them some wine and the other one gave the other one a they needed
Yeah.
to hand off some kind of medical equipment. But we were the provider of the medical equipment and the recipient of the wine. So
Awesome.
but
Well, awesome. Yeah.
they did this really cool video and it was free. It just showed up
Yeah.
in your email when you got home.
Beautiful. Wow,
Uh,
that is so cool.
It's like the world's best souvenir, right?
Yeah.
Recently, I panicked that I'd retired and was it in my old email account and did I somehow lose it, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But it turns out I still had it. I have it in my Google
Yeah.
Photos account now, but there's a way to get to it for quite a long time.
That's awesome. That's amazing. Fantastic. Anything else about this trip that you wanted to be sure to cover, you wanted people to know about, whether it's scenic or Antarctica?
Um, Other things about Scenic that I thought were really cool. Number one, they were really careful that everybody, including some people with a little bit of mobility issues, were able to get on the land. So they assigned multiple crew members to help folks that needed help to get into the Zodiacs and get them onto the land. There were a couple people that chose not to go do a lot of that stuff just because very often, but they did make sure that everybody that wanted to was at least able once to get on the land and hold up the flag and get their photo, with the Antarctic flag. The other really cool thing they did is they had an event for those of us that Antarctica was our seventh continent.
Oh, wow, that is awesome.
So they had like a little happy hour. They brought in a chunk of iceberg that they
Yeah.
chipped off and put in cocktails and made us these special blue cocktails and gave us a certificate that it
Yeah.
was your seventh continent. Um,
Wow, that is cool.
so it was a lot of fun. The other thing I will point out to your listeners, if they're interested, is the scenic experience in Antarctica is the subject of a television show.
Oh, really?
And it is very accurate. We watched it, and it is very accurate. I mean, obviously, there's a little bit of nuance that's a bit,
Yeah.
enhanced, I guess I would say, but the fundamental experience is very true. It's called Maritime Masters. It was originally on the Discovery Channel, but
Yeah.
now you can find it on YouTube. It's like 7 episodes. I mean, it was a long
Wow.
show. Yeah. It was an in-depth show about the entire process of a cruise to Antarctica on the Scenic Eclipse. It had the same captain we had.
Maritime
Um,
Masters. I definitely have to check that out.
yeah. So if anyone is curious about the experience of going to Antarctica generally, it would show you any small expedition ship, right?
Yeah.
I assume that a lot of it is somewhat similar. But then the scenic experience specifically is the subject of this entire television show that is really quite well done.
Wow, I have to check that out. Well, that sounds amazing. Now, the last time you were on the show, you said that your definition of luxury was getting things without having to ask for it and not waiting in line. Did
Mhm.
this cruise meet that definition of luxury for you?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. They did such a good job. I mean, they only had 200 people to manage, right? But they still did such a good job managing everybody, especially, when you're in a place that's a expedition destination, right? You're going to be very focused on how do they manage the process of the expedition part, the expeditions, right? How do I get on the
Right.
Zodiacs? Do I
Yeah.
get to do all the things that I think I want to do? Um, Et cetera, et cetera. And so I thought they did a very good job of that, managing everyone. They put everyone into color groups and they rotated. So every color went first one day, and then the next day it was a different one, and you just sort of rotated through.
Yeah.
So,
That's good. That's fair. And you knew what to expect.
right, absolutely.
And again, it's also another way of building community because you get to know everybody in your color group.
Right.
It's like, here's what we're doing today. Let's have lunch before we go. Let's meet afterwards and talk about our experience. So I absolutely
Yeah.
love that.
Help me when I do the polar plunge, which, by the way, everyone who is able to do health wise should do. I hated it with a passion, but I'm still glad I did it.
Yeah, I love experiences like that. It's like I'm miserable every moment, but after it's done, I'm so glad I did it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, fantastic. Did they greet you with like a beautiful plushy robe and a glass of champagne on the way out?
Oh, so every time you came in from your excursions, you had to wear special boots every time you went out on the land. As you can
Yeah,
imagine, you're not allowed to wear your own shoes.
yeah.
Um, so they assign you a pair of boots at the beginning, and you are assigned a cubby hole, and you keep your boots the whole time. And so they have this room where you go down and get ready to go out.
Uh-huh.
And every time you came back and you came out of that room, they had an entire little bar set up with coffee, hot chocolate, and various liqueurs that you might want to put in there.
Nice. I love it. I absolutely love it. Well, tell us what is next on your list for luxury travel, luxury cruising. Where to next?
So the next one that we're super excited about, keeping in the expedition vein, is we have the presidential suite on the Celebrity Flora going to
Wow,
Galapagos.
Galapagos.
Yeah. So it's the one that runs across the entire front
Yes.
of the
Yeah.
ship, or maybe it's the back. I think it's the back. Anyway, so there's a number of us going. We have a group. And so my husband and I got this suite. So we all have a place to hang out. We can all go out and be on the balcony. So that
Yeah.
the Celebrity Flora is, I think, 100 people
Yeah,
because
it's
that's what
not big.
Galapagos
Yeah.
requires.
Yeah. Yeah. And when is that?
That is in May of
Amazing. Well,
next.
I hope that you will come back and tell us all about the Galapagos and the celebrity flora and of course the presidential suite. Because that's what we'd love to hear about, all of the luxury. Because I love celebrity and it's a small ship, so definitely probably going to be a luxurious experience, but then just up leveled in that presidential suite. Presidential suite? Is that what it is?
Yeah, it's called the presidential suite. I'm very interested to see how Celebrity handles being that small of a ship because it's just not what they do, right?
Yeah,
They're not a small ship cruise line. We selected them because we wanted to pick something that was, a true expedition ship that was going to give us what we needed as far as seeing the islands. But we did want it to be a little bit more accessible to more people because we wanted to have some people with us.
yeah,
So
yeah,
we think it's a nice balance between the
yeah,
luxury and accessibility of it being celebrity, but we'll see. I'm happy to come back and tell you after the fact.
yeah. I can't wait. I can't wait. Well, thank you again so much for being here and for all the listeners. I thank you also for listening this week. And until next time, I wish you safe and luxurious cruising.